Welcome to the Believe in Your Office podcast, sponsored by Boomerang and Common Sense Office Furniture, the podcast where we explore what makes workplaces work. Every episode features candid conversations with leaders, business professionals, and workplace experts who've been in the trenches. They share the real stories, the wins, the failures, and the lessons learned about culture, teamwork, and leadership that actually matter. Let's get into it.
All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Believe in Your Office podcast. I'm your host, Josh Smargiassi, where we talk to business leaders and friends, colleagues throughout the United States on how the office is important to not only the culture of your business, but also the, culture of society in general. And today I have one of my great friends, great business leader, excellent philanthropist, commercial and residential title owner of Integrity Title Agency, George Duffield.
Hey Josh, thanks again for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it and looking forward to diving deep in some good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's great. So thanks for coming on. I know we had talked about this for a long time, and I know, this is kind of the first year. We're a couple months into the podcast, and I think it's just fun chatting with a lot of the people that I've had these conversations with throughout the years, and now kind of getting to record them is has been fun. So I'd love to get everyone listening an idea of how you got here, maybe your background. I do think that there's some pizza stories in the background. I think that
There
maybe
are.
got that got
There
us here,
absolutely are.
which is cool. So why don't you let everyone know a little bit of background and how you got to into the title business?
All right, thank you very much. So, for me personally, born and raised in Philadelphia, Fishtown, Port Richmond, I tell everybody with a hint of Kensington. Moved over to South Jersey around yeah, I tell everybody with a hint of Kensington, and I paid for some of these teeth as well. So, um, moved over to South Jersey probably 28, 29 years ago with the family and haven't moved. Still in the same house 28, 29 years ago. So my background is I've always been self-employed. I've been in the real estate space as an investor. At one point, I had 102 properties that I personally owned in the city. So when I moved to South Jersey, I thought, let me get my real estate license. How hard can it be? It was incredibly hard because when you're a real estate investor, you're thinking differently than the average consumer when they're trying to buy a house and they're worried about where their family's going to be, what schools. So it took me a little bit of time to get the ball rolling. I was with Weichert Real Estate at the time. I think 8, 9 months later, I took a Dale Carnegie class, and Dale Carnegie teaches people, how to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And it was, I think, a 10-week course, and it really changed the outlook for me on the way I look at things in real estate. So I moved over to Long and Foster, and I was a residential real estate agent up until 2011. I was one of their top guys over there. And I used to give all my title insurance business to Integrity Title. I felt that they were customer first. They always made my job a lot easier. They allowed me to do what I needed to do as a realtor, and they did what they had to do as a title insurance company. Everybody stayed in their lane. So they had a coup, essentially. Their entire sales team and their marketing manager walked out the door, and it left a huge void for them. And the manager the owner randomly called me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in still giving us your title work? I know you were friends with the previous guys." And being a sarcastic kid from the city, I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll come work for you. I'll come and run your sales and marketing department." And she asked what I would do differently than what he did. And it goes back to Dale Carnegie. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. What do the customers for a title insurance company need? And they needed help promoting themselves. They needed to be worked over, or not worked over, but worked on as business owners. A lot of real estate agents in this business, they don't realize they're in business. They feel I list a property on market, I sell it. Well, there's a whole business plan that should be going behind it. And next thing you know, I wound up talking myself into a job that I wasn't looking for. And yeah, three, four
That's
months
really interesting.
later, 3, 4 months later, I wound up working there. And 3.5 years after that, I wound up buying the company
That's
with
really
my partner.
cool. Very, very interesting. I mean, it's not too far off my background story either, which I don't think I've ever talked about here, but I think that is, it's funny, my son's about to embark on picking a college. He's a senior, and
Okay.
it's always like, what's your major? What are you doing? Like, what are you gonna focus on? And there's so many times where stories like this come up, and you're like, oh, everything you think you're going to do, you don't, right? And then you find yourself into something else that you never thought you would find yourself in, right? How do you find yourself in selling cubicles and desks and chairs? That that's one of the things we try to find people all the time. Does you want to come work and sell cute? And everyone always says, I never even thought that that was a business, How did that happen? And I think your story is interesting as well on how to get the
But
title.
title insurance is the faceless entity in all real estate transactions. Nobody
Yep.
knows who title is.
Hmm.
I didn't know who title was. Even though I was a realtor and sent business over, I had no idea really what they did. They basically just told me, hey, George, we're clear to close. Everything's squared away. I stayed in my lane, and it's amazing. The minute I got into this business, I had zero idea. It's not like people go to college to learn how to get into title insurance or get their title producer's license. It's, hey, are you looking for a job? Hey, I know somebody that's looking for a job. That's how people get into the title insurance
Yeah.
industry, or from another industry that's adjacent to it, whether it's mortgage, mortgage, banking, real estate. That's how they trickle into the title world. And that's how I did.
Yeah, that's really
Shocking.
cool. Well, thanks for sharing. That's awesome. It's interesting because you talked about getting into the business and how you got into the business and how it kind of was a coup or I'm interested. We talk about culture a lot here. What was one of the things, if you could elaborate, what was one of the things that you said that you thought would be a good you know difference or something that you'd be able to bring along and something that you kind of brought to the table? I think that obviously have done a really good job in doing that. And I think your culture speaks for itself. So what was different from then to now?
I I'm a marketing based driven person and a tech forward person. I felt that the old owner, she's been running. So the company started in 96 or 98. And the woman was older, and she did everything that she could do up until that point. I think she was just tired of, she was tired and looking to retire. And I came along with a bunch of fresh ideas. As a marketing person, I feel unseen, untold is unsold. If people don't see your product, they're never going to buy it. So we based everything on how do we promote the company? How do we get the company out? Title insurance, people that get into it, they're in it to the day they die. A lot of the title owners, they're in their mid 70s, some of them are even in their late 70s, pushing early 80s. They just don't want to let it go, right? Because they know, oh, I might have one more big run with a refi boom. Oh, I might have one more big run with the change of the market. So they don't want to leave anything on the table. And the old owner kind of felt the same way, but she had a lot of health benefits, and she knew we were going to do the best for what she already established as a company and take it to the next level. We explained to her when we were in the process of negotiating, we weren't really going to change the name. We were going to still piggyback off of the integrity that she built for the company. And it meant a lot to us. We didn't need to start from the ground up. We had a really great name, great thriving business, and we just said, "Hey, listen, she gave us the foundation, and now it's time to take it into the next step." And that's exactly what we did. We implemented some different technology. We were one of the first ones to create a phone app. We were the first ones to use different types of technology in the title space. People are afraid of change. They like what they like. They stay there. They're in their box. But with technology growing every other day, you either are on board or you're going to be shopped out real soon. And you're also
Yeah.
leaving you're leaving yourself exposed for wire fraud and things like that if you don't try to stay on top of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny. This is exactly what happens when we start these conversations. I have all these notes I'm taking because I want to go a bunch of different ways. I just got back from a conference in New Orleans for this group called Corfac, and Corfac is a bunch of commercial real estate brokers
Yep.
that come together throughout the country, and there's one in every region type of thing. I think you're well aware of it, but for the
Yep.
listeners, they kind of help support each other throughout the country. They have a client that's growing, and they're not tied to maybe a major commercial real estate firm. They also are able to kind of go into other markets and kind of piggyback licenses with other of their partners. And the entire conference was about AI and about technology. And you made great points. We talk about it a lot here. If you're not changing, if you're not willing to change, you're going to die, really. You have to be willing to adapt. And a lot of that plays into the culture, the office, furniture. No one wants to really go work somewhere that's not always progressive and getting, being more, in line with the office or more in line with society and what things are going on. You kind of have to kind of keep going forward. And something funny happened when we were down in New Orleans. We're walking through the town late at night. We're at the French Quarter, and we had just had a ton of conversations about AI, and we're talking about how technology is taking over, and we're seeing it live in demonstrations. We're walking down the street, and are two street performers sitting down with typewriters, typing notes for people, saying, "Would you like me to type a note for somebody on a typewriter? No one does this anymore." And
Wow.
and it was so ironic. Here we are at a conference talking about AI, and there's street performers using a typewriter selling notes to people walking by because typewriters are so extinct that when you tell someone that this was written on a typewriter, they won't
They have
believe
no
it.
idea. I don't even think my kids would know what a typewriter
Right.
was,
It's just
to
it's
be
just
honest
so
with you.
it's just so funny how it goes. But you have to stay on top of it. Otherwise you could be writing on a typewriter. I even joked with Jay. I said, "What were you doing? Talking to them, trying to get the typist to take notes at your front desk and be like, hey, we're in with the times, but we're still old school. We have a typewriter note taker."
I'm sure he'll take a note from that and try to work that into his model. You know what's funny? So think about it. You're in the furniture business,
Hmm.
commercial office furniture business, and you're at a conference for real estate, right?
Yep. Hmm.
It's amazing to me me and my partner, so I do have a business partner. She's the brains of the operation in the back of the office, and I got the brain piece of the front, right? It's
We know it
great.
well. Yeah.
Yes, she's got 40 years in the business. What she forgets on a Tuesday afternoon is probably all that I know about title insurance, but I
Yeah.
know how to run a business and how to grow one. So it's amazing to me. Ever since we bought the business in 2015, when everything wrapped up, we've been going to conferences three, four, five times a year. Only recently have I started to see my competitors there.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, these people have been in the business forever, and yet they wonder what we're doing. And the reality is, we've been maintaining my competitors. I never see them, and you only see them maybe once a year, and half the time they're not. They're there to party. They're not there to take something back to their company to be able to last another day in this business. Because if you're not keeping up with the times, you're going to get crushed. You're
Yeah.
absolutely going to get crushed.
Yeah. And I think it was interesting. Everyone is speaking about AI in a way that it's going to be detrimental, right? A lot of the people that don't want to adapt are going, well, it's going to take jobs. It's going to, eliminate, people talking to each other, and it's going to be bad for society. The reality is everything that comes in and how it changes usually creates something you can't see yet. And that was the focus that we had, was what is it going to create that we are not able to see yet? And if you can think about that, you can then get a little bit more comfortable in using it. One of the things that I found completely fascinating to me, that was unbelievable, is a few of the guys and ladies there have already hired an AI employee. And I'm telling you, it's wild. They literally have their own computer, their own phone. They have their own personality, their own, you program it, right? But it's an actual AI employee, and they work full time, 365, 24/7, doing the things that, are capable for a machine to do. Have conversations, people can call in, people can ask questions, and it can kind of direct you to the right spot. And I think initially people are going, "Oh no, what's that all about?" But if you really take time to think about it, that then frees up the people who were doing that in your office to do the things that they're really talented at and to use their skills in a different way. And so instead of being afraid of it, you have to kind of think about how do we really engage in this and maybe think about doing this for ourselves. And I thought it was really interesting because this AI person still needs somewhere to sit, even though they don't come in, because you have to plug their computer in. So there's still a little table or something, which is really funny, but they literally have their own phone, their own credit card, which is a weird limit, but you could text that employee and say, "Hey, we're out of coffee. Could you make sure that there's coffee here for next week?" And the response would be, "Sure, George, no problem. I'll make sure that I use the company card for that, and anything else I could do for you today." It's just crazy, right? And those kinds of things talk about culture and changing what's going on in the workplace, in the office, and how do you integrate that into an everyday scenario in your business or my business without scaring people, right? Without saying, "Hey, well, here comes the AI person." They go, "Well, what are they going to take my job?"
We've been playing, I don't want to say we've implemented AI a while back. We were one of the first ones to create a back end software that had a lot of automation. And I think people really lose sight of what AI is here for. It's not to replace, it's to enhance, right?
Mhm.
It's to make somebody better. It's to have things move along faster. We're toying with say AI as an opener. Josh is in the mortgage company. He sends me a title order. Basically, what'll happen is everything will get scanned into the system and it'll read everything and basically put it in a format. And that's where the employee engagement comes in, the actual human. All
Mhm.
they're doing at that point is scanning to make sure all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted. It's
Mhm.
not the time, say it takes somebody 20 minutes and you're doing a couple hundred orders. How many people you have doing a couple hundred orders, now you can cut down on the couple hundred people and just shift their role a little bit. It just enhances the quality of work, speeds things up a little bit.
Speeds it up, makes
Speeds it up.
helps you to get more done. It makes you a little bit more efficient. It can actually play in the culture. I've thought about this a little bit more. There's things that have to get done by the end of the day. A lot of times if let's just say you have a meeting, George, I see you out all the time, networking in similar groups that we do here. If you have something to get done, there's been multiple times that I can't count on my hands even that I would be, man, I got to get this out before I go here. And you show up to that event late, right? Maybe you missed someone there that you were trying to talk to, or you just hit some traffic that you didn't want to hit because you didn't leave when you wanted to leave. These tools that are created now, I need to get these things done. They can do that for you, right? And it could be telling you what it's doing while you're driving, and now you're not doing the work. These things, you got to look at it just from a different way, and it'll be interesting to see how AI implements into offices. I think the next 2 years, people are saying 5 to 10. I think over the next 2 years, it's going to be an explosion of just things that we never thought were even going to happen in this lifetime, right? But they're just taking off.
Yeah, and I also think that if you don't embrace even a small fraction of it, the delta is going to be so wide you might not recover, right? Some of these companies, they want, I mean, listen, every business, there's an evolution of it. And if you don't try
Mhm.
to pivot and move forward,
Mhm.
you're gonna have issues. And when we briefly touched earlier on COVID, right? COVID was a death sentence for a lot of title companies, but it didn't have to be. It absolutely didn't have to be. At the time, we just moved into our new office. We have a 5,000 square foot, our corporate headquarters is a 5,000 square foot office here in Marlton, New Jersey. It's very collaborative, it's very open, there's a lot of glass. And now all of a sudden, we had to shut it down. So I figured, you know what? If somebody wants to come in our office, they're more than welcome. We got a certain sanitizer and sprayed it down every day with with a particular machine. But I set up a by 30-foot tent out in our driveway here with palm trees, lights in it. So where people would just drive up and they'd get their mortgage packages and we'd give them a designated number out in the parking lot and said, here, everything's tagged off, go through it. And they would essentially sit in their car on speaker with a mortgage package with a live operator, and they would walk them right through the mortgage
I remember I
package.
did that. I did that during that time. Yeah, that was. I mean, and it's adapting. It's a great. It was
It's a
adapting.
pivot.
Yeah, you
It's
have
a,
to.
it's a
But I
pivot.
mean, it's interesting. We talk about COVID a lot because it was such a key part of a lot of the things that happened in business over the recent future, but it was so long ago at this point. I mean, it really
Yeah.
was. It was 6 years
Oh,
ago, you know?
it forced people to get out of their comfort zone. It really forced people to think outside the box.
Hmm.
It really, I didn't know any better. For us, it was about survival. And if I was a buyer, I saw some title companies where they put a table and two chairs out on their sidewalk. Well, that's good on a nice sunny day, but we don't live in Florida where we get a lot of them here in South Jersey. And
Right.
is that really going to work? Do people want to sit in their car with a stranger in the back seat and going through things? So we've
Yeah.
really tried to make it as user friendly as possible for the time that we had to do it. But it was there was something great out of it because it forced people to think outside the box.
Well, that's interesting. Because you're talking about something you did that was design and layout change in your workplace that
Yeah.
helped increase productivity. And that's one of the questions I usually have. That's, how what is something that you've done? You've kind of already answered from that standpoint, but is there anything that you inside your business that you go, this has really helped us throughout the years? We've changed this, or when I first did my office space, we did this layout and then we realized that it really wasn't working or wasn't productive. I think you were one of the first ones, because now it's happens all the time. But when we were looking at your space, you had a coffee area with a really
Yep.
cool like beer tap and coffee bar and hangout lounge area, and that was something that was like you were on the forefront of it, and now people have that a lot. But it really makes a lot of sense in your business, I know, because you're coming to sign paperwork. Maybe you're bringing somebody, paperwork may not be ready or they got to wait. They could do things. They can hang out. They can work there. Really,
Hmm.
really cool space that you guys have created there. Is there something else that has changed since we first did that design, or any
Yeah.
that's
We've enhanced that particular area to make it more collaborative. We invite more people where we'll do a lot of networking things there. But
Mhm.
one of the things that have really excelled our company is the theory of mobile closings, right? Josh, you're a busy man. You don't have time to run over from your office to my office. Listen, I'm going to send somebody to you, right?
Mm.
Let me make your life a lot easier. Oh, your wife's over in Marlton. You know what? Listen, does it make life a lot easier when people come into the office? Yes, but when people are um, busy, we need to change, right? We need to bend. A lot of title companies are very firm when it's like, no, it has to be this way. Okay. So now if I can send somebody to your office and I can send somebody to your wife's office or your wife's house, how much more convenient did I just make your life, right? So now you're able to get that email out or to be able to place another order. That has been game changer for us, just the sense that we're willing to bend to help people. I'll tell you a story we had happen. It actually two different things. Last summer, there was a client. His family was on vacation at a place called Gurney's in Long Island.
Okay.
He was not coming back to close, and he wasn't able to push settlement off. So he said, "Hey, listen, what do we need to do here?" We actually sent somebody, a notary, to his hotel in Long Island. Now the buyer's here in New Jersey, basically at our settlement table because they were buying local, but the seller wasn't coming back from vacation. The deal had to happen within X amount of time. The buyer would have lost their lock, and so their pricing would have went up. So we sent somebody to the hotel. They met him in the hotel lobby. The guy and his wife came off the beach with their ID, sunbathing suits, tan and lotion all over them, and they're like, "Listen, this is probably the easiest home we've ever sold." You
That's
know,
great.
there's something to be said about that. We had another one where the guy this past winter, the guy was in Vermont and he wasn't coming back to sign. We sent somebody to his property in Vermont because he was skiing. Guy came off the mountain for lunch. We met him at a certain place, got documents signed, and off he went. In today's market, today's business, you got to be creative in the way you move the ball along. You cannot take this firm line of no, you have to leave here, you have to be here. It's just not the way of the business. Our office is really great for a lot of collaborative business, but at the same time, we're a company that's flexible. And I think with the mindset of going back to the COVID thing, how do we pivot? It just keeps that what's going to work for the consumer. And then it takes it back one more. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Am I
Yep.
going to leave my vacation that I just spent all this money for to
Hmm.
come back and sell something? Yes, I know it's
Hmm.
incredibly important, but if there's a way around it, what's the way around it?
Yeah. No, and being willing to say yes, that's one of the biggest things. And I think finding a way to do it will make it so much easier. I think about it, I was just thinking about it in someone else's shoes as the mortgage salesperson or the salesperson who's trying to get a deal done, going, well, you know what? It's so much easier to use integrity because if I have some strange scenario, they're probably going to be okay with listening to options on how to get it done. So you could tell someone, look, well, we got to close this deal by the end of the month. Well, I'm on vacation. I don't know what we're gonna do. Well, don't worry about it. We'll just come to you. What are you talking about? You could do that? Yeah, we could do that. It's no big deal. Like we could still do the deal. Everything can still happen, and it just eases the mind because I used to be in mortgages. I think I before I got into furniture, I sold wholesale mortgages for a company that sold the paper, packaged it up, and sold it to Wall Street directly. So I was selling to the brokers who were then
Okay.
going to you. But there were so many instances where it would be Memorial Day, or the lock would be expiring on Monday, but it was Monday, Memorial Day. All the banks are closed. You can't get it done. How are we going to get the deal done? Well, we extend it. A lot of people know that, like maybe people don't know when you're extending a lock, it costs money. Meaning, if
Cost
your
money?
rate is locked in, that's what it is, means locked in. Your rate is locked in at, back then, geez, back then it could have been 5 1/8 or something like that. And if you want to extend it, it's going to cost you a quarter point, right? And it's like, well, what do you mean a quarter point? Well, a quarter point is a decent amount of money on $300,000 or $400,000, So it was, how do we get it done? Well, we go to the beach, like, well, or because DocuSign didn't exist back then, and still even today, a lot of people don't, a lot of legal things are not allowed to be DocuSign. You have to be wet, but being willing to do those types of things gets you more business, and getting more business is kind of what you need to survive. So, being flexible like that is important.
There's a lot of commercial people that we work with, a lot of investors. They do not have the time to want to meet us on our terms. They
Hmm.
want us to meet us on their terms. And
Hmm.
if we do that, it generates more business. But more
Hmm.
importantly, they're in the same boat, right?
Hmm.
Whatever their business is, they try to
Hmm.
provide the best customer service.
Hmm.
So, not sure if you're aware of this. In the title insurance space, the state dictates the price, right? It's like buying a Rolex. If you buy a Rolex here in South Jersey, you're going to pay $1. Let's just say
Yeah.
$10,000. If you buy that in Naples, Florida, the same watch is 10 grand. You buy
Right.
that in Naples, Italy, it's still 10 grand. Rolex dictates the price. Well, in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, Florida, for title insurance, the state dictates the price. So then what's it come down to? If every customer is paying the same price, it comes down to customer service. And if you don't have customer service, you got a bigger problem, right? So you have to get creative and you have to be able to figure out what does the customer need more than anything. I mean, Josh, I'm sure you have a specific business model, but if you have a customer that needs something on a drop of a dime, or you do what you can within reason, within
Hmm.
your power to
Hmm.
make it happen. That's just
Yeah.
good business. It's
Yeah.
good customer service.
No, you have to be flexible, and you have to be able to say yes when others say no. I mean, that's what we say a lot is, how do you make it happen? I think in the way that we work, or in the way that society is now, a lot of times it's hard to find people that listen. You're A lot of times you're sitting here and you're
Yeah.
moving so fast that your people are talking, but you're not. listening to what they're saying. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I think,
No,
you know,
people just don't listen.
I think that it's just look like, your initial reaction is like, nope, I can't do that. I've never done that before, so no, I can't do it. But if you actually listen and go, okay, does it make sense? I tell my kids this all the time. Are you listening to what I'm saying? Like think about, just take a second to think about how do we get it done? We've never done it before, but maybe we could do this. We were building some furniture the other day in the showroom, and the client wanted a shelf a certain way, and we couldn't get it done because a lot of the things are made, they're custom, they're semi-custom or fully custom, or what we call cookie cutter, which is, they're just made in a box and then we kind of make it fit in your space. Well, the
Yeah.
semi-custom pieces are, flexible to a certain point, but they still have some limitations. And we're talking to the manufacturer and they kept saying, well, we can't do that because that's not how it's supposed to work. And it's not the way we ever designed it. And then just standing there looking at it and building things. It's funny when I'm putting things together, I like to think about it. I go, what if we turn the bracket upside down? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if we turn it upside down, it'll work. And they never even, never even thought of it. But you could do those things, and just being flexible, listening to what like the scenario is that needs to happen, because some things that may not be important to you are important to others. And
Somebody
so,
else,
you
a
know,
customer's wants and needs, you
yeah.
know.
And what we do is not real. Well, I mean, I like to think that it's consequential. I like to think that we build things that are efficient so that you can be efficient and produce things that you need to kind of help push society forward. But at the end of the day, when you really dial it down, if a chair comes in the wrong color or something isn't there the day it's supposed to be there, there's fixes for it, right? We're not doing open heart surgery where
Right.
if I mess something up, it's catastrophic. I think that's the other thing, is to kind of sit back and go, okay, how catastrophic is this? And I often tell people, I'm like, well, the good news is we're all alive. The bad news is we're gonna have to wait 2 more weeks to get it the way we want it. But that we can figure that out. So I think really good conversation on culture, how we are flexible. How are you guys, just, one more question before we go. Like, are you guys, you talked a lot about going out and being, going to places to sign paperwork and do things. Are you, is most of your staff working, in the office? Or I'd imagine there's some remote flexibility for you, especially when you're doing these signings where you go, hey, well, if you're gonna be leaving anyway, start the day at your house. Do you see
Yeah.
that? Is there anything that you guys are doing in a hybrid space where you have some days in, some days out?
We have about 85% of our staff in the office. Because we service a pretty large area, we do have some staff that lives further from our corporate headquarters, and
Hmm.
it works for them to work from home. We don't have a problem with it. It just makes sense. It
Yeah.
just makes sense.
Hmm.
I look at it this way, and I've always looked at it this way with like our processors, for example. I have zero problem if a processor had to take their kid to school at 10 o'clock in the morning or pick a kid up from school at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But I also expect you shooting an email out at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. I mean, think about what we do, right? We provide title insurance. We make sure people's properties are free and clear of any liens, judgments, any encumbrances, and all that through the list. Josh, we could be out there shoveling concrete work, right? We could be doing that kind of work if you take the time to look at what my partner says it all the time, just read, right? Just read. If you read everything, everything's going to work itself out.
Hmm.
We take the stance that if it makes sense, we have no problem with working from home. But we also understand that you have to do it with a balance to make sure you don't lose the culture that you've been working so hard for, right? We try to
Great point.
include the people that are here because if you're here in the office all day long, you're going to hear conversations that you might not get at home. So
Yep.
we do include the people at home whether it's on Zoom a lot of times, or we'll have some staff that live farther away. We'll have them come into town and we'll put them up in a hotel for a day or two because we want them to be part of the long-term culture. We reach out to them when they least expect it. We send random things to their house saying, hey, just so you know, we're thinking of you. We don't want you to think that, oh, I just basically, my world, my culture is just looking at a computer screen all day. There's a lot more to that, to be able to have the same kind of culture for the people inside and the people outside. It's huge. It's wildly important for us.
It's a great point. It plays to what you said opening up about your background and who you are. If you're unseen and untold, you're unsold. I mean, that's, it's internally too, you kind of have to be in, front of people. We talk about it a lot, so it's sort of redundant, but so many things happen where we have conversations that you never would have had. It's just so much easier to talk and to have things go by, or someone's walking by. I'm sure you're shooting this right now in a conference room in your office. I can tell, but I'm sure people are gonna be like, George, what was that, when they come out, right? But if people weren't in the
No, you're
office,
absolutely right. You're
if people
absolutely
weren't
right.
in the office, they're not, you could be at your house and go like, what's going on? I've already had 5 people walk by the office, and I know they want to talk, but they're like, oh, he's doing a show. But it'll start conversation. And I think that that's what's really the culture's about. Hey, George, why are you doing that? Well, part of my marketing background and things that I like to do and talk to people and get things out. And, I think that it's been a really great conversation. And I think that
Oh, man.
I think that I have a lot of great insight. Why don't you, thanks for coming on, I think. And I did want to
I
mention
appreciate
something,
it.
I did want to mention something. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but you do such great work in the community. I know you've done a lot of work for a lot of charities, and thanks for that. I think you really
Thank you,
big
brother.
philanthropist. I think you do a lot of good work, great heart, really good, thoughtful person, and those things are, very evident in your business and everyday life. So, that's always appreciated. I wanted to mention that, sir, when
Thank you,
know what
bud.
kind of content and character we're interviewing here. And again, just so everyone can, remember, commercial and residential title, New
Yep.
Jersey, Florida, any other states?
PA, Jersey, Florida. I tell
Okay.
everybody, if you're in the process of purchasing a commercial or a residential property, PA, Jersey, Florida, think of us. We can help you with title insurance. You're absolutely going to need it. Our office is open Monday to Friday, but I find myself like you, all business owners, we work the weekends. I had somebody reach out yesterday. If you're reaching out to me at a Sunday at 5 o'clock, you need something. What's the harm of picking up the
Yeah.
phone? You might be
And
able to
pretty
help
soon your
somebody
AI
out.
employee will handle that anyway.
You know what? I wrote it down. What is the ultimate AI employee?
Right.
So trust me when I tell you, I'm definitely going to do some
That'll
research
be
on that.
great. Well,
So
again, thanks again. Thanks for your time. This has been great.
thank you, Josh.
Thank
I
you,
really
everyone,
appreciate
for
it.
listening. And as we always do, we say, make a little noise quietly.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Josh.
Your office isn't just where work happens, it's where culture is built, ideas are born, and teams come together. And if your workspace doesn't support the people in it, everything else becomes harder. That's where Boomerang and Common Sense Office Furniture comes in, supporting communities in Orlando, Florida, the tri-state area, and everywhere in between. Boomerang and Common Sense both specialize in high-quality office, hospitality, healthcare, and educational furniture that doesn't just look good, it performs. Whether you're furnishing a growing team, redesigning for hybrid work, or just need furniture that actually works for how people collaborate, Boomerang and Common Sense make it easy and affordable. Visit boomerangofficefurniture.com to see how the right furniture can transform the way your team works.